Hey guys, welcome back to another segment of the RepPath Podcast. And today we got a really interesting discussion, and this should be really exciting or really interesting to a lot of you seasoned sales reps out there that have been in the industry. It could be a year, could be 30 years, But today's topic is, how do I progress when I feel stuck in my current role? We've all been there, guys. All right, you've been at a company a couple of years, and you had certain expectations that you're not there yet. Maybe you wanted to get into management. Maybe you wanted to get into corporate accounts or reimbursement or marketing, and you're still stuck in this same sales role that you were in when you started, and you start to feel like that stuck in place, can't move anywhere, and you start to wonder, what the hell am I doing here? And you don't want to make the rash decision that a lot of reps make. So before we get into that though, guys, as always, please submit any questions, comments, whatever you want to discuss, please submit it to the chat and we'll address this, about halfway through the call. We are live today on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. We're also on every podcast platform known to man. For any of you reps looking to break into the industry, we'll discuss this more at the end. Please make sure that you're inquiring about the RepPath Academy. You could shoot me an email at joe@reppath.com or just send me a message via LinkedIn to get more details about the Academy, because it's exciting stuff. We've got a lot of great things going on with the Academy, a lot of reps getting placed every week to break into this industry. So please reach out for that. Okay. So today's talk, getting back into what we were saying, you don't want to fall into that trap that a lot of reps fall into when they feel stuck and they make the rash decision of, all right, screw this shit. I'm out of here. I'm done. I'm not where I wanted to be at this point. So it's time for me to pack my bags and go somewhere else. And guys, when you see as many resumes as I do, again, on average, I get 300 to 500 resumes per opportunity that we post. That's a lot, but I'm not special. There's a lot of recruiters out there that could get even more than that. So it just shows how much competition is there. And when you're seeing all the resumes that I see, you see how many reps out there have been in a job 8 months, 12 months, 15 months. So many have been in the industry 10 years. They've been at 7 or 8 jobs. It's crazy. Now, I know there's a lot of volatility in this industry, but you don't want to add to it by getting frustrated so quickly and not thinking more long-term and making these jumps, because companies are going to entice you and pay you an extra 10, 15,000 more in your base to make you jump, but it's going to hurt you in the long run if you keep making these jumps, because eventually companies will stop reaching out because they don't want job hoppers. Okay. So I know that things happen. You get laid off. Sometimes you get into a job, it's not what you thought, but to do it over and over, that's not the right approach. The first thing you have to do is take a self-assessment of where you're really at. Okay. And it's one of the things you want to do is you got to reframe this. Okay. Being stuck isn't necessarily bad. Okay. It also signals that it's an opportunity for you to grow. All right. Because when you realize you're stuck and you're like, damn, I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. My numbers are good. I've always hit my number, but I'm still in the same role. So this is a time to self-reflect and say, okay, well, now it's time for me to try to improve myself and to try to get other opportunities. And how can I do that? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So don't look at stuck as a negative place to be. That means that you've done what you wanted to accomplish. And that's what the self-assessment's about. Are you there where you set out to be? Did you have a 2-3 year plan now that you're at 2-3 years later? And are you there yet? If you're not, say one of your goals was to, the next 3 years and 12 quarters, you wanted to hit your quota, at least 75% of the time. You look back at your numbers, you were only hitting it at 40 or 50% of the time. This happens. You don't know that. You feel like I'm doing well. Manager likes you, getting a lot of accolades, a lot of praise from leadership and from different colleagues. But are you really there where you want it to be? And you got to be tough on yourself, guys. Because if not, then why do you deserve the progression? Be hard on yourself a little bit. So whenever you get into a new role, you have some of those goals, have some of them printed out that you could go back to, because it's a good indicator. Like, did I really do what I set to do? Are you really an expert in whatever therapeutic area like you set out in your goals? Are you really taking steps towards whatever future role, whether it's leadership, marketing? So you need to be real with yourself in order for you to move on. So that's the first part, and that we'll just leave that under identifying and clarifying what your career vision is. All right. So did you really want to get into marketing after 2 years? Right? If you did, okay. So now what do you do? That doesn't just mean, guys, that all right, now it's time for me to move on to another job. You can take a lateral move to move ahead. And that's sometimes what it takes. And what do I mean by that? If you want to get into leadership, so a lot of the typical progression in medical sales is you are a sales rep for 2, 3, 5 years, whatever it is at a company. And then after that, I want to get into management. So a lot of reps don't go from sales rep to management just like that. You could become a field sales trainer. That's a typical, intermediary step that you do before management. Did you inquire about that? Did you take a role? Sometimes you go to marketing to get more experience and see that different side of the business, because it can help you become a better manager. So a lot of sales reps go into marketing for a year or two and then progress into sales. Sometimes it is a lateral move on paper, but financially it could be a step back, because you could be getting great bonuses in your current position. Say you're making 20 to 50,000 a quarter in bonus, and now you're in a marketing role where you get 20 or to 50,000 for the year in your bonus. So you're gonna lose some money and maybe only get a few dollars more in your base pay. So sometimes you got to make that decision. Do I want to take a step back financially, because your end goal is to be a manager? So it's having that end goal in mind, but it doesn't mean hopping from rep to sales manager just like that. Sometimes it takes that lateral step. And that's why a lot of individuals eventually become managers. I mean, I did this in one of my previous roles where they had a sales management training, and at my first pharma company, they had individuals for 2 years, working 3 months at a time in different departments, not just marketing, reimbursement, human resources. And after those 2 years, it was a management acceleration program. And they found openings whenever there was an opening. They were the first in line for that management role, because they got this 2 years of experience of what real sales leadership is in all these different divisions that were made available for these reps, that made them a better salesman. Okay. So they made them a better sales leader and prepped them for sales leadership. But not many people want to take 2 years to do that route. They want it now. All right. But these are the individuals that put the sacrifice in and were able to get those goals. So always think about what your end goal is. And it may not be a direct line from A to B. You might have to jump out to come back in, but make sure that you know what your goals are. But there are always other options to move laterally before you move, to another north-south movement. So how do you do that then? So now you could take a lateral move. Okay, that's one option. What about investing in yourself? This is key, guys. I'm not saying this because I'm a coach. I'm not here. Yeah, of course I'm here to promote my program, to promote the RepPath Academy. There's no secrets about that. But I'm always providing content, always trying to show everyone that I am a sales leader and I am a coach that you want to work with, because I know what I'm talking about and I've helped others achieve success. So we don't sell something just to sell programs. We're here to make people better and improve their skills. And we know that we're good at this, but you have to invest in yourself. It may not just be working with a coach. It could be asking sales leadership, and letting them know what you should be doing, throughout your progression there. And they should be asking you. Any good leader should say, what is your career goals? You want to have that down with your manager. The sooner the better. Have those conversations. You're not sitting here saying, I'm already done with this role and I'm ready to move on and I need more. No, but you want to do well and you want to be a leader in this industry, then say it. Yeah, I definitely eventually want to get into sales management, or I do eventually want to get into a marketing role. Let that know. The sooner the better. Your job that day is to be the best sales rep possible. That's your job. But if they're asking you what's your goal moving forward, that could be one of your goals. So work with your manager and the people on your team of, how do I get there? All right. And that could be maybe doing more ride-alongs, shadowing other people. Do you ever offer that? Do you ever ask for that? You could say, hey, can I work with the marketing team one day, every, a quarter, or one day every month, something where you're putting in that extra effort to learn about that new role. Because the ones that show the initiative, guys, they're the ones that sometimes outshine just the ones that have the best numbers. Because let's be real, guys, some people have great numbers because they're great sales reps. Sometimes they have great numbers because they have great territories. It just happens. You could have great reimbursement. You could have a great setup from the previous rep where your product is available at all these hospitals and all these IDNs, and it's a cakewalk. It happens. You take over territories where someone was a 3 times President's Club winner. Management's they're not stupid. They know what the previous track record is. So it's the individuals that really show that they want this and want to improve upon their skills. So ask about shadowing with people. Ask about doing ride-alongs or training outside of your current role. That is key. And then also sharpening your skills on your own. So you don't have to just wait for a ride-along or for someone to teach you. Teach yourself and let them know that this is what you're working on. It could be a course that you take. It could be, working on a certain certification if you wanted to get it. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's specific on whatever you're looking to do, obviously, but always try to improve upon yourself. I mean, that's why at RepPath, our slogan is own your own. And that's what we mean by that. You own your own development. Owning your own development means doing whatever it takes to improve upon your skills to get to the next level. And again, that could be looking at YouTube videos. That could be speaking to sales leaders, throughout the industry, mentors that you have. Do you have a mentor? That's key too. If you don't have a mentor right now, guys, and working with someone that if you want to get to those higher levels of sales leadership, do you have a mentor that has done that? Because these individuals, they will teach you a lot on how they got there. And they could save you a lot of time and effort, because sometimes when you're doing it on your own, it's difficult. And you kind of just run around and you don't know, so you don't know what the next step is. These individuals can help you. So try to find a mentor that can help guide you. Excuse me. All these things are important to improve upon your skill set. So make sure you're always owning your own development. That's key. And let your management know. Let whoever it is that can help you get to those next steps know. And when you're on those ride-alongs, when you're having those conversations, that this is what I've been doing. I just got this new certification for XYZ. I actually signed up to do a ride-along, with whatever department. Obviously, you got to get okay for that, but just always let them know that what you're trying to do to progress. But you got to make sure it doesn't affect your numbers. If they see a dip and they see you trying so hard to improve upon these skills, and then your numbers are dropping, it's going to go on deaf ears, guys. They're not going to want to hear that shit. They're going to say, hey, listen, when you get your numbers back up, then we could potentially talk about promotions. But right now, since we've been talking about it the past couple of months, I'm seeing a dip in your numbers. Trust me, guys, they're going to say this person is not ready for sales leadership, because you got to wear many hats in sales leadership. Sometimes sales leaders are player coaches where they're covering other territories. Excuse me. they're doing so many other things, but still making sure that their team, and sometimes when they're covering that territory, that is priority. That number has, and those goals have to be met. So if you're not capable of improving upon yourself and still running your territory, then they're going to say, wait, we got to pump the brakes here. All right. So make sure your territory is at where it needs to be before you start really pushing, for these conversations. Because the first thing they're going to do is see where you're currently at. And if you're not at 100% of your goal, that is not the right quarter to ask about next steps or talk about, improving upon your position. Okay. Sorry, just checking my notes. Okay. Next thing that's very important, guys, is you don't just get a medical sales role and then the networking stops, or you're only networking with physicians. I made this mistake when I started. I was just so focused on getting building my network, building my base of business with all my doctors. And I really didn't do a great job of networking within my company. I had friends. I knew some people in HR. I knew some people in marketing and all that. But I could have done a much better job looking back to really make sure that my networking internally is key. And I'm always working on that, because those relationships, guys, are going to help you get to that next level when it comes to promotions. It's quite simply, if no one knows who you are in the marketing department, and your next step is to get into the marketing team and lead a team in marketing initiatives, how are you going to get there if you don't know anyone? It's the same as applying to a medical sales role. Just what you did to break into this industry and networking with different reps and managers. And once they got to know you and you built relationships with them, they're more likely to say, hey, we should hire this Joe Licata guy. He's tenacious. I'm seeing his background. He's, I love working with him. Whatever they talk about, whoever the rep is, but you have someone in your corner. You need the same thing internally. So always be building those relationships internally. Don't just wait for, oh, now I'm ready to move on to the next level, and it's been 2 years, so it's time for me to get a promotion. No one's going to care. If they don't know who you are, or you're at meetings and you're that guy at a national sales meeting that doesn't really take time to meet people, is not shaking hands, having conversations. This doesn't mean going out and getting bombed with people at national sales meetings, because I've seen this shit too. I did it when I was younger. I would hang out with the managers, hang out with the executive team. They would go out late. You're having drinks with them. You do whatever you want, but you don't want to be the guy that's constantly going back to bed, not talking to anyone after the meeting. You're tired. You don't feel like doing anything afterwards. It's a long day. You just want to go back to the room and relax. No, guys, take those opportunities. Those meetings are there for you to get face-to-face time with a lot of people, and make sure you're doing that. Don't sit in your groups, who we all have these groups. You have your groups of friends that you all, huddle up. Sometimes you get the negative crowd that's like, oh, I can't believe we're at this meeting. This sucks. Why do we have to fly all the way out to Dallas? We could have just done a Zoom call. These are the real conversations. And meanwhile, you got all these people that can help you get to the next level, and you're not having conversations with them. So you got to make sure you're taking advantage of those opportunities, because it's key to really be able to get to the next level. Everyone has to, these people have to really know you. And that's not just a quick handshake when they're reading your name tag. Sit down, get to know them, learn about their progression. How did they get there? What did they do? Again, they're most of the medical sales employees are good, friendly people. They're in sales. They have a background where you have to have a good personality. They're not going to, you might get a guy here or there that doesn't want to share information or is just cold. Obviously you move on from them, but a lot of them are going to be very willing to open up on what they did to get to that level. So you want to stay close to these people and continue to build those relationships. Excuse me. Next is, controlling what you can. Okay. So the key here is focus on solutions, not obstacles. Don't sit here and jump the gun right off the bat. Like I said at the beginning of the call, say, I'm not where I need to be. Screw this shit. I'm gone. No, guys, that's focusing on obstacles. and saying, well, there's no more room here, and being too, jumping the gun too much. So see if there is a solution. That's why you're looking at the other opportunities, like moving laterally, it's working in a different department that might not be where you want to be, but it can help you get there, faster in time. So these are things we always want to be solution oriented. How can I get there? Do I need to take a course? Do I need to improve upon certain skills? What do I need to do first? When you exhaust all that and then you're still stuck, then you could start saying, okay, maybe it's time for me to move on. There is no career progression. Everyone knows what I want to do. I'm hitting my number every quarter. I'm trying to work in other departments, but it's getting me nowhere. I've worked with mentors and sales leaders, and sometimes it's just not in the cards at that company. That's okay, guys. Then you could start thinking about looking at other opportunities, but you don't want to do that right off the bat. All right. So focus on those things that you could control. And that's, again, getting back to, you know, reading the books, doing the podcast, doing all those things. But most importantly, it's keeping that positive mindset. You don't want to get in your own head and start getting down, because once that happens, guys, everything falls apart. When you don't want to be somewhere and you're still going out there every day, it's a tough job. It's tough as it is. But when you have a negative mindset, that's the last place you want to be. You always want to be positive. Always look at it as that it's a good thing to pause every once in a while and say, what am I doing? I'm kind of stuck here. That's a good place to be, because now it's time to reevaluate. Most of us keep our head down every day, do our jobs, and don't really think about this too much. But it's okay to think about it and say, no, I got to do more. So don't blame other people and say, I'm in this position because of them, because a lot of reps do this. Oh, Bob won't promote me, or Susan hates me, so I'm never going to get this job. Jill is best friends with Alan, and he's definitely going to get the promotion before me anyway. What the hell am I doing here? You don't want that attitude, guys. It's positive, and blame yourself. That's what I always do. I always put it on myself when things are screwed up, things aren't going right. Sometimes it isn't my fault, but always blame yourself first. Look at yourself, because by blaming yourself, I'm not sitting here saying get on yourself and get yourself upset and blame yourself for all the problems in the world, but look at yourself first to say, hey, what could I do to get to that next level? Not, I can't get to the next level because of such and such, employee out there that has a better relationship. No, it's on you, and it's your goal to figure it out. And just lastly, before we go to some questions from the crowd, it's, again, feeling stuck, guys. It's not permanent. So this is where the mindset from negative to positive is important. Don't look at it as a permanent issue for you. It's a signal, and it's a good signal. That means you got to reevaluate. That's number one. You don't have to take one big step at a time. You don't have to say, okay, well, I'm frustrated and I want to move on. So either I get that promotion or no, and I move on. No, guys, you don't want that attitude. Excuse me. This is important because you can take small steps, and that's what you want to focus on. So when you take that pause and go, I'm not where I'm at, it doesn't mean, oh, I got to make the big jump, or it doesn't work out, I got to move on. No, it's okay. So what do I do first? And this is where I'm getting back to having that conversation with your manager could be a small step. Improving upon a skill, reading a book on marketing, going to take a course, speaking with individuals in the marketing department. Like we were saying, these are small steps. Focus on those small steps first. If you said I've done all these small steps, okay, then we could talk about looking elsewhere. But until you did a lot of these small steps, you don't know. Why do you deserve it then, if you haven't tried all these things? So focus there first. And the last thing is, progress takes time, guys. It does take time, and it's good to reevaluate and see where you are every so often. But again, the whole the message for this, and I know we talked about it, it's constantly owning your own development to get better and putting it on yourself to do that, not waiting on other individuals to do it for you. So I'm going to pause right now. And James, if you're still there, buddy, if there's anything from the crowd, any questions, please.
No, Joe, I left. I just left you hanging. We got nothing. I got a couple questions for you, man. We got does loyalty to one company actually get rewarded in this industry anymore?
Yeah, the answer is yes and no. I mean, again, we're always, super transparent on the podcast. There's some companies that I don't think they do a good job of that, and that's why employees leave. But they're few and far between. The companies out there that are are well-structured companies, reputable companies, they reward their talent. They reward their individuals because they want them to stay there for a long period of time. I think the problem that happens and where it gets confusing, it's reps don't really verbalize where they want to be with their team, with their managers and their executive team. Because when you're doing well, when you're kicking ass out there, your first goal is to hit your number and really be the best sales rep out there. But when you're doing that and you're looking for future growth and advancement, and you're working on all these other areas, the growth opportunities are going to be there, and they're going to be loyal to you. So again, put it on yourself first. Worry about being a great sales rep or being a great employee in that current role that you're in, and then letting them know where you want to go. Where do you want to be in 2 years or in 5 years? And having those conversations, having it written down. Take your own notes when you're having these calls, and you could talk about it again on the next meeting with your manager. But a lot of reps don't do that. And I think that's where the problem is. So they feel like, well, they're not promoting me, and here I am, I'm doing well, so I'm just going to move on. So it's kind of like both sides. The reps get frustrated before they really vet out everything and they look to leave. And then sometimes there are companies that they don't do a good job of that. So they don't have reps that are that feel that they're getting the loyalty. But overall, there are a lot of companies out there, more than the few bad apples that don't reward loyalty, that they will reward those reps for that.
Okay. We got, do promotions usually go to the best sales reps or the best politicians internally?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, it's rare that someone's going to get rewarded and promoted if their numbers aren't good. But I have seen reps that are good politicians, and they're going to get, hey, guys, this is life. You don't need us to tell you that relationships matter. I mean, if I'm going against the VP's son in an interview, I might not get that job because it's his father that's the VP. Now some people would say, well, no, I'm still going to hire the best person. But the reality is, a lot of times the relationships are king, guys. So always you want to do both. And it's not like you have to decide, I have to be a politician, or I just as long as I'm good, then I'm going to get promoted. As long as I hit my number. My number one goal is my number. Okay. But I could still network and build relationships with individuals. So I would combine both to increase your chances of getting that promotion. But numbers come first always.
Joe, we got, what if I'm crushing it, but my manager doesn't like me?
Got to be transparent and have those conversations. That's the key. I'm not saying you have one bad encounter with your manager and all of a sudden you're like, hey, dude, what's up? But you want to make sure you got to document everything in this business, guys. Nobody wants to do this shit, but you have to. So your managers, sometimes you're going to do a CPR, coaching progress report, or whatever they call it at your company. We used to call them CPRs. But they're going to do a ride along with you and write up a CPR. If you don't agree with it, right? Because I had this issue, which became an HR issue with one of our managers because she was doing this with many reps where she was giving at this company. Obviously, I don't mention names, but you had to get the okay or give your okay with the coaching progress report that was written up about you. So after your meeting, your ride along, they would write up a report and say how the day went, and then give you grades. Like a numeric rating from 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, and say one of the sales skills I got a 2. Say, right? I'm just making this up. I don't remember. If I didn't agree with that, then I'd have to justify why I was a 3 or above, and then have to give examples from the day. Like, oh no, remember we met with Dr. Jones, I got this objection, that objection, and I was able to turn them and then get a commitment for the next case. Like, these are things that you had to put in your report. So you want to make sure that you're documenting those. The more that you can get via email, even if you have a conversation, give a recap. Trust me, guys, not everyone wants to put in this extra work, but you never know later on, because you're going to have to go back to some sort of paper trail. Because if you got a manager that's, constantly on you, and then you're going back to the paper trail, your numbers are good, and then you're justifying, the reasons why you got some sort of negative response, it's going to be hard. They don't have a leg to stand on there, because then you can have the conversation and be like, I got to be honest. I feel like I'm doing everything right, and I want to be straight up with you. I feel like you're keeping me down. What's going on? What is your problem with me, or what are the issues that I don't see? Because I want to be able to fix this and have a good relationship, and I don't feel we're there. That's great to do. After that, I would send the recap of the conversation. Okay, getting it documented. No one wants to do this, but you never know later on down the line, because you can have that conversation, and I've seen this. I've had this happen to me where it's all sunshine and rainbows. And Joe, no, I don't know why you would think that. I think you're great. I think you're doing everything well. You did a great job mentoring, so-and-so and so-and-so. You're doing a great job, contributing to other areas and volunteering for, trade shows and everything that, a lot of people don't want to do, but you're doing it. You want to get that recap in an email and send it to the manager. Again, just want to recap our conversation as we discussed on some of the things that I've worked on and some of the things that I'm doing well. Send that. Now it's a paper trail. Now it's documented, because now when you bring it up again, you have that in your little, electronic folder that you can pop out. So that's a suggestion that I know a lot of you don't want to do, but trust me, when you're in that moment, you don't want just to have these conversations that aren't really being recorded or registered, because they could pretend like it never happened.
Joe, do you have a small win I can create to get noticed by leadership?
A small win I could create for you.
I guess something that that they can do to get noticed.
Yeah, the small win that I would do is, like I was discussing, volunteer. When one of the things that is a real thing that happens that a lot of reps don't want to do are trade shows, because a lot of the trade shows, I'm not a big fan of how some of them are run, where, for instance, this is for anybody that's not in the industry. A lot of you guys on this call, of course, you've been there a million times. You know what this is about. Company does a 3 or 4 day meeting in Dallas or Vegas or whatever, and you set up in your booth. Doctors come in from 7:30 to 7:45 before before breakfast, excuse me. Then they come in during lunch, and they're eating most of the time. They come in from like 12:40 to 1:00. Excuse me. And then if you're lucky, you might get doctors that are coming in after the meetings are done at 5, but most of them leave. So you don't get much time with the amount of time that you want to get with doctors. And there's other trade shows that do a much better job to get face time with physicians, but a lot of them, that's what I would see. So reps aren't going to jump at the gun to spend a weekend away from their family and do one of these events when they're like, at the end of the day, I might see 2 or 3 doctors that are in my territory that I see anyway, and I'm getting 5 minutes with them to talk about my product, and I'm not being negative, I'm just being real. So that's why a lot of reps don't want to do these. Be the rep that volunteers. If there's a rep on the team that isn't doing well, step up. This is what a leader does. What can I do to help them? Reach out to that rep. Hey, I see you're struggling a little bit. You know, what exactly are you struggling with? Is there something I can do? Work with them. You know, these things will come back. The management will see it, and they'll also see that the reps that you help will talk about it with management. That's how you get that's what a leader does. A leader doesn't wait for someone to tell them what to do. They do it. So offer that volunteer, offer that guidance, that mentoring, whatever it is that isn't just about you and your number, but it's to help others or to help the company. You know, trust me, guys, that goes a long way. So volunteer as much as you can, you know, because those are the people that they know are loyal to the company and are willing to make the company better, that they're going to bump up in line for those promotions.
That was a great answer, actually, Joe. We're going to clip that one.
Thank you.
That one.
Been working on that for a while.
That's what these impromptu questions bring out, man. We got, my company keeps hiring externally instead of promoting internally. Should I leave?
I mean, again, that's a quick statement that my quick answer is no. That until you do everything else we talked about, don't just jump the gun. And is everyone really, they're really hiring externally? Because I would push back on that, because I place, again, tons and tons of candidates, we place them every month all around the country. And it's usually the opposite, that I'm pissed off as a candidate because I just spent 4 interviews or sometimes 7 interviews. And they told me the last interview, I was great. I had everything, but unfortunately there was someone internally that we decided to move forward with. That's usually what happens. So I would push back that doesn't really, and I don't know who asked this, so I'm not trying to, beat you up with this, but I know it happens, but it usually is the opposite. It's they hire internally and they don't like to hire externally, and they make me go through this because HR says we have to interview a certain number of external people. It's rare that an internal person is going to get consistently passed up because they know the company better. Sometimes people have great relationships and they poach from other companies, but odds are that internal candidate, they're getting the job before someone external.
We got, Joe, I've been in the same territory for 4 years. Am I shooting myself in the foot for future leadership roles?
No. Well, first off, why are you shooting yourself in the foot? I mean, if you're doing well, leadership doesn't always, it's not always the great, the grass isn't always greener, guys. It's just not. So you got to know what you're really getting yourself into. I mean, I had reps that I knew making literally $700, $800 to $1 million a year as a sales rep. If they wanted to go on to management and they were crushing it and they were doing everything right, they're leaders, they're mentors, they're working on their skills, they're crushing their number. Why the hell would they want to get promoted to a manager where now they got to worry about not only their own issues, but everyone else's problems in their territories? And now they're making $300,000 a year. No one's going to want, some did because they have stressful territories. They're traveling all over the country, all that, but it doesn't always mean that being a manager is the best situation for you. So I wouldn't look at it as, I've been here 4 years and just use that as your only judgment about doing well or moving on. See where you are. And if you're really crushing your number, you could make more money as a sales rep than as a sales leader. And for me, I'm straight up. I don't care about titles. I care about making money. I'm here. Yes, I'm here to help patients. I'm here to work with physicians, make their practice better, be an asset. But at the end of the day, guys, we're here to make money. So if you're making more money as a rep, you got to evaluate that first. And also, is the management role, did you learn enough about it that is it really worth it? So don't look at it as I've been here 4 years. I'm not a manager yet, and look at yourself as a failure. You got to evaluate everything.
All right. We got, is it harder to progress in pharma compared to medical device sales?
That's a difficult question to answer. It's company dependent. So, um, I mean, I've seen pharma companies typically, and not always, because it really depends on the size of the company. So I wouldn't look at it as pharma and device. I would look at it as a large company to a smaller company. Because when you're dealing with large companies, typically you'll have sales rep, district manager, regional sales director, area vice president, national sales director. Like sometimes they give these in between titles, before you get to vice president and president, CEO, whatever the other higher levels are. So there could be 10, 12 layers that or tiers for you to go up. And then you're at a smaller company and it's the vice president, a manager, and 30 reps. That happens a lot. So it's just how many opportunities are really out there is what you have to evaluate. And a big thing is, do you consider relocating an option? And if you don't, well, is that the company's problem? Because I got an opening to be a manager out in Wyoming. Do you want to move the family from the East Coast to go to Wyoming? You could do that. But a lot of reps say, oh, no, but it's got to be in my backyard. And this sucks. This company sucks because I want to get promoted in my backyard and they're not making it available to me. No, sometimes you have to sacrifice, guys. So you have to look at that too. It's not just about having the perfect opportunity. It's the reps that really progress in their careers sacrifice, no matter what it is, guys. I know you have kids. I know they have sports. I know they have all these events. I know you got a life outside of working. But the ones that really get to those next levels, they have sacrifices. It may have affected their relationship with their wife. They may have had kids like daddy never comes to the game. But this is real sometimes. These are the ones that they put that sacrifice in and they're offered and get these opportunities because then two promotions later, they could be back on the East Coast making X amount of more dollars and be in a dream position. So I know most of you know that it's about sacrifice, but do you really do it when it comes down to it? So it's not just about pharma device. Sometimes, the size of the company is going to matter for the amount of opportunities out there, but you want to make sure that you're being open to those opportunities too. Well, you can keep going. My plug just popped out. Sorry.
Joe, this is why we can't have nice things.
No, man.
How do you fight the Sunday scaries when you hate where you're at?
Well, we all get the Sunday scaries.
Especially when your Bears lose.
Well, Bears lose, even though they won last week. Sorry. It's amazing. I'm listening to a Jets guy say this, but sorry, guys. So how do you avoid the Sunday scaries? And wait, sir, repeat that again. I'm sorry.
Yeah. How do you avoid the Sunday scaries when you hate where you're at?
Well, I mean, a lot of these, you guys, you don't want to torture yourself. If you've done everything we talked about and exhausted every avenue, you don't want to keep staying at a company that you're miserable at. That's just number one. But I always thought that being transparent is a way to you don't want things to build up inside every week, and you're never having a conversation with your manager because you don't want to have that awkward confrontation, and you let it build up. Usually, that's where the Sunday scaries would get the worst for me. So I would just be transparent, nip it in the bud, have those conversations, get it out in the open. Most managers, again, they're good people, guys. And if you're in a miserable relationship with a manager that he's such an SOB that you don't want to be with, I mean, yeah, of course, don't torture yourself. Find another job. But if you love the job, if you love the day-to-day, you love selling the product, you're doing well, and your manager is driving you crazy, or you hate where you're at, just talk. What does it hurt? What are you doing? Why are you torturing yourself every week? And the last thing you want to do is affect your own health, because the older you get, you see shit happens in, all of a sudden you got high blood pressure and, all these other, cardiac related issues from stress. So don't let that, no job is worth that, guys. If you're getting stressed out every Sunday, you got to nip it in the bud, man, and have that conversation first. talk it out. There are things that you can do. Most managers don't even realize they're doing it. So when they realize it, usually they fix things or they try to. So I think having that open, transparent conversation will minimize that. And if you're struggling every Sunday, just as another piece of advice, being prepared. Excuse me. I was watching this. I forgot who was giving this motivational talk. And he said, why does grandma's Sunday dinner, why does it taste so good? Why does grandma's Sunday dinner taste so good? And the answer was because she starts making it on Saturday. So the point being, be prepared. If you're going to be stressed out about your week and have those Sunday scares, because a lot of reps, I used to get this. I used to be worried about the cases I have that week, all the appointments. I'm not hitting my numbers, so I got to get this in. I got this admin work. I'm traveling to Boston on Tuesday. Then I got to fly out to Charlotte. The more that you're prepared, and I would always spend a couple hours either on a Saturday morning or early on a Sunday, because once the games start, I want to watch football on a Sunday. But you still have for me, I wake up at 6 on a Sunday till 1 o'clock. I mean, you get a full day in there. You don't even need to do that. You spend an hour, on preparing your week. You're going to minimize those Sunday scaries. So the preparation is key. And if it's not numbers related and it's just your manager, then and you're just miserable in the role, then just be transparent and talk about it.
Joe, you've been in this industry for a while. What mistakes do you see reps making when they feel trapped in a role?
They let the negativity build up. They get frustrated. They get in that negative zone, where every day they're going to work. And a lot of reps, what they'll do, they'll get in the car in the morning, they have their coffee, and then they call their 2 or 3 friends that also are pissed off at the company. And they just bitch all day long to each other. It's a bad place to be, guys. I've been there. I've done it. I know a lot of you out there that do it too. It's normal, but you don't want to be in that spot. If you find yourself right now going, oh, wow, that hit home. I do that all the time. I'm constantly talking to Susan and Bob, and they're, we all hate this company. We all want to be there. If you hate something that much, then leave, so don't fall into that trap. Don't get into that negative trap, because that's what's going to prevent you from moving forward. You want to stick with those positive, high performers at your company, and it's going to get contagious, because you're going to want to, it's natural for all of us to compete. I don't want to have conversations with the lowest performers in the company, and then you start competing with them. That's not fun. They're at the bottom of the rankings. I want to compete and have conversations and relationships with the high performers. That's where I want to be. So stay out of that negative zone and keep that positive mindset. That's the key. And a lot of reps fall into that trap.
I think it's common throughout sales.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's let's be real. People naturally just like to bitch to each other about problems. You talk about friends that I can't believe he did that last week, and, oh, what's the matter with him? And, oh, my wife's driving me crazy. Whatever people do, they like to just bounce, and complain to one another. It does nothing. It's actually a waste of energy, and it gets old and just like wears on you. Don't get trapped into that.
Do certifications and training actually help in med device, or is it more about results?
It depends on the certifications. This gets asked all the time. And obviously I don't, I know they have like certain pharmaceutical, CPNR or whatever it's called. I'm drawing a blank on the acronym, nothing against the company that sells that or anything. I don't know any companies out there that say, Joe, I need to see, someone has to have this certification for them to get a job here, and then there could be different certifications where individuals, have, clinical certifications that can help them in a certain role or get a promotion. But a lot of times the best way to move forward, number one is performance, and number two is that owning your own development and constantly doing that, constantly looking to improve on your skill set outside of you just being a great sales rep. What else can you do? That's key. Again, we can go into different certifications, and yes, some are important, some are not. But off the top of my head, it's not the reps that get promoted and move on to sales management. They're high performers, and they're always trying to be a leader, even when they don't have the title. That they're volunteering, they're mentoring, they're supporting team members, they're doing things that don't help their number, but it could help someone out by maybe joining them a rep that's struggling on a lunch, or doing a dinner with that young rep to help them get the business from a physician. Those are the reps that get to the next level. It's not the ones with 50 certifications in their titles. Excuse me. One last thing before I forget. Sorry, James.
Yeah, go ahead. It's your show.
A good proof of that, guys. Read the requirements of the jobs. Some of you are great at that. There's a lot of you that do not read the job requirements. I can tell, because when you send me your resume, it's just, Joe, I'm interested. And you don't even put any reasons why you're a good fit. You don't tell me anything of reasons why, what are aspects of the job that interest you. So read those requirements, and you'll see how many of them are really asking for certain certifications. If they ask for something and you don't have it, why are you applying? But you're going to see a lot of them out there. It's more about the experience in sales and in certain therapeutic areas than it is important about having a certification.
We got Joe, I'm top 10% in sales, but still getting overlooked for promotions. What am I missing?
Again, this is a tough question to answer without knowing more details, but are you having those conversations with your manager? Do they know where you want to be? Did you have a goal that you wanted to be at this point in your career and you're not hitting it? What can you look at yourself internally and say, did I miss anything? Are you trying to own your own development? Did you try to volunteer and learn more about different departments, going on ride-alongs, shadowing people, whatever it is? Did you do all those things first? And then if you still did all that and it's still not there, again, that's when you could start looking elsewhere. But look to do all those things first. Did you try to do that lateral move and got rejected from there too? I think you'll find that most reps are going to say, no, I didn't do that yet, for whatever it is. And until you uncover all those stones, then you can't really jump the gun and say, I'm not where I want to be yet. You got to do all those things first. And again, if you've done all those, then you could look elsewhere.
We got Joe, when you're ready to leave a company, how do you do so without burning bridges?
Well, you obviously want to do everything you can to leave on a good note. So, as always, you always want to give 2 weeks notice. Just as a warning, guys, so some of you might not know this out there. Just because you give your 2 weeks doesn't mean the company has to give you 2 weeks. Okay. So I've seen individuals that they didn't have much going on in their territory, and they were just like, they're trying to collect 2 more weeks paycheck, which I understand, but they already have another job in place. Joe, I'm going to give you my 2 weeks today. The company doesn't have to give you 2 weeks. They could tell you right then and there, oh, no, that's fine. We're good to go. Today will be your last day. So just as a heads up, guys, the ones that actually give the 2 weeks, and typically what should be happening is you transferring over whatever cases you have booked, whatever information that you can share with your manager or your colleagues. I mean, someone's taken over your territory. Typically, you want to sit down with your manager, and when you're telling them you're leaving, and say, hey, let's jump on a call this week so we could go over all my business, all my accounts. What do I have pending? What are some of the tips and feedback I want to give you about some of the targets in my territory? That's leaving on a good note. That doesn't mean just being nice and saying, hey, I'm leaving and thank you for everything. No, you really want to transfer and make it a smooth transition for whoever's taking over. That's the respectful and professional way to do it, because you don't want to just be all nice. And I've seen this. And then all of a sudden the manager is reaching out, the following week, and all of a sudden you ghost that manager because you don't give a shit anymore because you're leaving that company. Do not do that, guys. Believe me, people move. Again, it's a volatile industry. You could be working for an individual again. You could be sitting there in an interview and someone knows you previously from a previous role, and they tell that hiring manager, do not hire him. He screwed us at our last company. I see it. There's reps that don't get job offers because someone else is working at that company and they burn bridges. They say absolutely not, and they don't get the role. So make sure you're not one of those people, guys.
Do you have a book or resource that you'd recommend for breaking out of a plateau?
There's no book that I know of. It's doing all the things we talked about. I always come back to it, and that's why it's our slogan is owning your own. You got to put it on yourself first, guys. You got to be honest with yourself. Did I truly do everything? Did I try everything? I'm going to give you, James will laugh at this because always giving stupid movie references, but this isn't as bad. This isn't as bad as Pitch Perfect or Devil Wears Prada. In the movie Rudy, James, you've seen Rudy.
Great movie.
Right. Great movie.
Acceptable reference.
Right. So Rudy in the movie, for any of you who haven't seen it, he's applied he was in Holy Cross, applied to Notre Dame because he wants to be, play for Notre Dame eventually on their football team. It's been a lifelong dream. He's small. He's not athletic. And first he has to get into the college. And so he applies 3 semesters in a row, and it's the last semester. And here he is talking with the priest that he's built a relationship with. And he says to him, I'm praying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Is there anything else I can do? I've tried everything. That's someone that truly has tried everything. And, in the movie and in real life, of course, he gets in and winds up playing for the Fighting Irish for Notre Dame. But he asked himself, what else can I do? He's asking the priest. So if you've never seen the movie, it really is very, very relevant to what we're talking about today. You got to ask yourself that. Is there anything else I can do? Not, why isn't anyone helping me? That's the weak response. Put it on yourself first, guys, and then the success will come. You like that one, James?
That was a great one. That was a fantastic reference. Much better.
Yeah, it was just on this weekend, so it was really fresh in my mind. So
it's a great movie. Yeah. What's the first sign I'm truly stuck in my role versus just hitting a temporary plateau?
What's a sign that you've been truly stuck or it's just temporary? Again, that's situation dependent. Are you having a bad month? Did you have a bad quarter? It happens to all of us, where it seems like, shit, I've called on every to where I just really can't, grow this. And then you're really looking at it. You're like, I really only didn't grow for one quarter. That happens. Sometimes it's not always this kind of, just constant upward, progression. Sometimes you go like this, you dip, you come up, you dip down, you go up higher. That's just life, guys. So I wouldn't just jump the gun. You're going to be able to tell, by looking at it, is this something that's a minor blip, or have I been doing this a long time and I'm truly getting nowhere? And that you got to evaluate with yourself. So it's a hard question to answer to say, yeah, if it's been 2 months or it's been 6 months. No, sometimes it could be a year that you're waiting and the individual that you're going to take over just didn't retire yet. So you need to know the more specifics before you make that decision. It's hard for me to say, oh, yep, it's got to be after 3 months. That's it. Either you're progressing or not. No, there's so many external factors that you have to weigh in that, again, like that situation, you are the next in line. The company's telling you that you're the best. You've had the numbers. You live in the area. This individual should be retiring the next 3 months. Sometimes holds out a little bit longer. Then you got to make a decision, where is he ever going to retire, or should I just, wait it out and then, eventually, get to where I need to be.
Do hiring managers actually value lateral moves, or they just see it as a lack of growth?
No, a good manager should understand that. I mean, you gotta have valid reasons why, sometimes you can move laterally from another company because you got laid off, or the company is warning everyone that they don't have enough funding to support a sales team for the next 6 months. And, and they're upfront with their reps. I mean, it happens, or sometimes you could be like, wait, there's an opening. I always wanted to get into, spine, or I always wanted to get into neuro, and that could be a passion for you for your own reasons. So as long as you have your reasoning and it's real on why you did that, then to me, lateral moves sometimes are more respectable than just constantly looking for those titles. Sometimes that to me shows a lot of times where someone's passion is, because I see lateral moves sometimes and they're getting into new therapeutic areas because they have a passion for that. Because it could be someone that, God forbid, has a sickness in their family and they always had a passion for cardiology or whatever it is, and they want to get in there. So no, absolutely. Lateral moves could be just as valuable and just as impressive as a upward move.
And I got one last question for you, Joe. My manager says I need more experience, but won't define what that means. How do I handle it?
Well, again, if a manager can't define what that is, then that's a tough situation. If that's not a good manager, if they say you need more experience and they can't answer what that means, then that's a red flag to me. So whoever's in that situation, whoever asked that, you got to get clarity. And if they won't give you clarity, that's a huge red flag. Any good manager would say, you need to do X, Y, and Z. This is what I need to see over the next 6 months for us to even be considering any kind of promotion. They should tell you that. If they can't, then that's a red flag, and that might not be the best place to be.
That's all I got for you today, Joe.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for asking all those questions, and thank you, James, for sharing them. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Again, guys, just a couple of housekeeping. Anyone that is looking to break into the industry, please reach out to me for the RepPath Academy. Again, we have classes going on every week. We constantly continue to grow, constantly continue to place people around the country, between our coaches, between our network and our community. It's great where everyone is working together to help people achieve those goals to break in. And if any of you out there that are looking to advance in your career, please reach out to me directly, either via email or DM me on LinkedIn, so we could talk about what your specific challenges are and how you want to get to the next level. One final piece of note, two final things. Sorry. Anybody that wants a copy and see the recording of this podcast, please make sure that you're subscribing to my YouTube channel, Unfiltered Medical Sales Coaching, where you can see the link right there. And for any lobby members that are looking for additional training, like we talked about, either with the Academy or advancing in your career, please submit the promo code Licata, Licata. You see it posted up there. Thank you, James. So you can get additional discounts. All right, guys. Thank you again. As a reminder, we do these every Monday and Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So I hope to see you soon. Take care and have a great week.